Hi kiddos, it's Mrs. Denfeld, and I was just, we're going to go ahead and read chapters 22 and 23. So chapter 22 starts on page 157 in Hello Universe. Chapter 22, Imagine you are someplace else. The darkness had teeth that snapped and clenched, and here was Virgil sitting at the bottom of its throat. He couldn't even see his hand in front of his face. There wasn't a sliver of light anywhere, not a single pinprick. The bull wants to kill me, he said. He never would have believed it, not truly, but what other explanation could there be? His cries for help had traveled through the trees and landed on the bull's waxy ears, just like he'd predicted. Virgil had shielded Gulliver when the stones fell. Then the light went away, and the bull wanted to taunt them, then kill him. It was the only logical explanation. Who else would do such a thing? Now his heart beat quickly, too quickly. Maybe I'm having a heart attack, he thought. Was this what they felt like? Could 11-year-olds have heart attacks? He couldn't breathe either. His lungs had been stolen by the darkness, and he sputtered and clutched his backpack close to him, both arms wrapped around like a raft. Gulliver chirped, not knowing any better, or maybe he did, and he was saying goodbye. When Gulliver stopped chirping, the strange sound filled the well, a wail mixed with a gasp and a hiccup. Virgil frantically searched the darkness before he realized the sound was coming from him. So maybe he wasn't going to die of a heart attack. It would be a breathing attack instead, or both. Virgil caught his breath in his throat. Now he was half gasping, half choking. Calm down, he said to himself, only because a gasping sounded more like but it worked. Kind of. He stopped half choking anyway, but he didn't let go of his backpack. He told himself he was protecting Gulliver, but he knew it was the other way around. The bottom of the well is a quiet place. Virgil had never realized how noisy the world was until there was nothing to hear. No distant cars driving by, no humming of a nearby air conditioner, no birds chirping. He couldn't even hear the turning of a leaf. This is the end, he said. He perched on a low ledge. No one will know where I am. Generations of Selenases will continue on forever, far into the future, and not one of them will ever know that I'm here. People would say, we once had a boy called Virgilo in our family, but no one knows what became of him. And he would make the sign of a cross. All the while, his bones would lie at the bottom of the pit, with Gulliver's bones next to him, so small that they would look like a thread. Virgil's throat was dry. His head suddenly felt very heavy, like someone had placed a brick on his forehead and asked him to balance it there. He opened his mouth to take a deep breath, but he couldn't. His lungs felt full of air, but all at once, and empty all at once. His body was a bundle of nerves, all being pulled and snapped at the same time. And now it wasn't just the darkness or the silence. It was the smell, too. Mildew and old, stale water. It reminded him of how the sink in the kitchen smelled when the drain was clogged up. He closed his eyes. Imagine you are somewhere else. That's what his mother used to tell him when he was very little and had bad dreams. Before she called him Turtle. Before they figured out that he wouldn't be perfect like his brothers. Imagine you were somewhere else. He imagined his bedroom with Gulliver rattling a water bottle. He imagined Kiori's house with the circle rug and the incense that smelled like burned flowers. He imagined Lola at the table, reading the newspaper and shaking her head. All the imagining might have worked if Virgil's ears hadn't been closed instead of his eyes. But because they were open and alert, they picked up a distant sound in the darkness. Ignore it, thought Virgil. Probably just Gulliver. Only he knew that Gulliver what Gulliver sounded like, and this wasn't it. Gulliver's noises were harmless and simple: squeaks when he is hungry, chirps when he is happy. Guinea pigs didn't do much else. They certainly didn't ruffle anything, and they didn't have anything to ruffle. And that's what this sound was. Imagine you were somewhere else. Imagine you were someplace else. He went back to his bedroom, but it faded as soon as he thought of it. Kiori's circle rug vanished too, and Lola at her table were swallowed up. The sound. What was it? Wings. That's what. Wings being opened, wings being tucked. A colony of bats, maybe, ready to descend with their dagger mouths. Louder now. Virgil didn't dare open his eyes. His feet were blocks of cement, his legs were rubber bands, and his mouth was clenched so tightly that he was breathing only through his nose. But it wasn't breathing really, more like hyperventilating. The sound of quick, useless breath spurting through his nostrils filled the space, but the rustling grew even louder, and he realized that now it couldn't be bats. It was something fuller. This had plumes, feathers, wings that could blanket an entire village. This was Fa. This is the end of chapter 22, so now chapter 23. The Issue of Time, page 164. Kiori Taninka's first word was Namad. Even though she had no pneumatic blood, not as far as she could tell, judging by her parents. But one thing she didn't hear from her parents, specifically her mother, was the keen sense of time. One of her first orders of business as the older sister was to teach Jen how to tell time. Unfortunately, Jen didn't have much of a knack for it. "What time is it?" Kiori had asked one afternoon a few years before, when Jen was just starting to learn. Kiori had drawn a clock on a sheet of paper. Anyone could see it was 3:30, the peak of witching hour. But Jen stared at the clock blankly. Instead, giving the right time, Jen sat down with her legs stretched in front of her, grabbed her toes. She'd always been a wiggly girl. "I don't know," Jen said, "but who cares? All I have to do is look at Mom's cell phone or the microwave, and it'll tell me right away, with the numbers." "This has numbers too," Kiori said. "But it doesn't tell me straight out." Kiori sighed. Life can't always be straight out, you know. That was the first and last time Kiori had tried to teach Jen how to tell time, but it never stopped hounding her about the one of life's most important lessons: be punctual. One of the things Kiori appreciated most about Virgil was his punctuality. If he said he would be somewhere at 8:13 and 40 seconds, that's what time he would arrive. Sometimes a little earlier, but never later. Not even by a minute. That's why she knew something was wrong, even before she looked at the clock and saw that it was 15 minutes late. It's not like him not to just not show up. He didn't give us any "sorry, I can't make it," Kiori told Jen. They were standing side by side in the living room window, looking through the blinds, waiting for Virgil's skinny little body to come up the walk. It doesn't seem right that he wouldn't text, especially because he knows how precious my time is, and I have a new client coming in later. "Maybe he forgot," said Jen. "Doubtful," said Kiori. "Maybe his mom or dad made him do something else and he didn't have a chance to tell us." That seemed more likely. Parents had a way of getting in the middle of things and screwing everything up, but still. "It doesn't seem right," said Kiori. "He still would have texted or something." She opened up the front door and took a step outside. She crossed her arms and scanned the road with her dark, lined eyes. This proved the level of her concern. Kiori never stepped outside for clients. She always demanded the password. When you have the powers of second sight, you have to protect yourself. Look what happened to the Salem witches. Jen stood next to her and crossed her arms too. If their parents had been home, they would have told them to shut the door because they were letting all the air conditioning out, and they don't know how much money they were wasting. praise to the ancestors, Mr. and Mrs. Taninka had Saturday errands. I have a bad feeling, Kiori said. She tipped her head back and looked at the sky for signs. But it was bright blue. It was a bright blue, cloudless day. Some would say it was a beautiful day, but Kiori thought rainstorms had much more personality. Jen's eyes widened. Maybe you should consult the crystals. Oh, yes, the crystals. How could she have forgotten the crystals? But those were reserved for special occasions. She wasn't sure if a client being 20 minutes late qualified. Let's text him again, just for good measure, Kiori said. They walked back inside and went to Kiori's bedroom, and then where she had laid her cell phone just outside the door. She preferred not to use her phone in the chamber because she wasn't sure how the world would hereafter felt about such things. She explained cell phones and the internet to spirits, so they were all up to speed, but you never know. Virgil didn't answer the text, so Kiori called. It went straight to the generic voicemail. Kiori hung up, leaned against the wall in the hallway, and chewed her bottom lip. At 11:30, she developed a pit of concern in her belly. At 11:35, she considered something would be gravely wrong. By 11:40, she was convinced that Virgil Selenius had met a terrible fate and it was time to consult the crystals. She kept them in a small velvet sling bag inside a locked box behind a stack of spell books under her bed. Jen was the only one who knew where the crystals were, and it was her greatest secret as far as both of them were concerned. Jen had to swear on her past, present, and future lives that she would never reveal the location of the crystals for as long as she lived. When she asked Kiori where the crystals came from, Kiori put her finger to her lips and said, "The keeper of secrets may ask no questions." In truth, Kiori had gotten them at a garage sale. Mrs. Taninka loved going to garage sales. She thought it was absolutely wonderful that Kiori wanted to go along because she called it mother-daughter time. But really, Kiori just wanted to see what kind of treasures people were giving away for a nickel. That's where she had found the crystals. The woman selling them said that you were supposed to use them to fill flower vases. For decoration, the lady said. But Kiori knew better. The secrets of the universe buried themselves in unusual and beautiful objects such as these, and the only select few could pull those secrets out. So she had bought the crystals for 10 cents. Kiori locked her bedroom door as Jen wiggled under the bed for the box. Once she had it, she carried it gingerly to the rug. Kiori opened it, removed the bag, and shook out the crystals. Then they both leaned forward. A close inspection. "What do you see?" asked Jen quietly. Kiori studied each crystal without touching it. They were all different colors: red, blue, clear, and pink. She scanned the clear plastic one with a peculiar interest. "He didn't forget the appointment," she said. "He's been detained somehow." Detained? What does that mean? Not detained, detained. Held up. Jen gasped. "You mean with a gun?" No, not held up with a gun, just interrupted somehow. She straightened her back and added, with some authority, "Something has prevented him from being here. But we know that already since he's not here." Kiori ignored her. Jen was a helpful assistant, but could be insufferable. "Something's happened," said Kiori. "Of this, I am certain." That was chapter 23. So make sure that you are up to date on reading the chapters up to chapter 24.